This is Tea Earl Grey Hot, an unofficial Star Trek fan podcast from the Other Side Podcast Network. Observer Effect. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Tea Earl Grey Hot, an unofficial Star Trek fan podcast from the Other Side Podcast Network. My name is Dave, and I am joined this week, as per every week. I can't get rid of him. This is the problem. He won't go away. I'm joined, of course, by my friend Yannick. Hi, Yannick. How are you?
Hi, Dave. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very excited to record the 11th episode of our little show. It's been a nice experience so far, and hopefully it's going to last for another, 1100 episode.
We actually missed a trick last week. We should have actually commented on the fact that we had reached double figures.
Yeah, absolutely. Great achievement. I mean, lots of podcasts don't even make it after the third episode. No,
exactly. Yeah. And they do say that if you do reach double figures in your podcast, then you have a more a better chance of carrying on.
Yeah, I think we have a chance that we have a TV series behind us, so we do have our next 14 for this season, and then 10 for Picard, and then so we have lots of material to go on.
Yeah, so it's not as if we're going to run out of material anytime soon.
And when we run out of Picard and Discovery, then we can go back to Voyager.
Yeah. Is it worth mentioning that we actually have an audience this time round?
Yes, we do. We have posted the link to the video chat to our Telegram group, t.me/TEGH podcast, in case you're not on in our group yet. And Cubicle Nate is with us. Is not going to interact with us during the show, but is listening and potentially watching us, which I don't know if it's a very good thing or not.
Yes. Well, this is part of the reason why we haven't actually yet taken the decision to start streaming live on YouTube or anything like that. But I don't think we're quite ready for that yet.
No. Little steps. Baby steps.
Yeah, the time will come, I'm sure.
Yeah. Probably around Picard, because I'm pretty sure that we'll...
maybe.
Pretty sure that,
maybe.
Yeah.
Anywho, so on this week's episode, we are going to be reviewing Star Trek Season 4, Episode 11, Observer Effect. We're going to have a quick chat about, some housekeeping really, and then we've got our usual fortnightly roundup of news articles that have come into our attention over the last couple of weeks. Yes. But we should also say thank you very much indeed to Nate for joining us on last week's episode. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic episode. I think having Nate as a guest was fantastic. It really worked well.
I had a great time recording it, and I had a great time listening to it yesterday and today in the car. So thank you, Nate, for joining us last week, and hopefully we will see you on another episode soon.
I suppose I should also apologise for my audio last week. I did have some technical problems last week, which meant that my audio was dropping out at various points. It did get masked by our post-production, so a lot of the issues were fixed. But actually, this time round, I have some other issues which are currently plaguing me, so I do apologise if that comes through this time round as well. But at least from your side, the audio should sound a lot better than it did last week.
Yeah, well, technical problems that happened. We are not professional. We have day jobs and families and stuff like that, so we can't spend our time getting everything just perfect. So, yeah, that happens. That's not a problem.
Well, add to the fact that this is like take 17 of trying to record this. No, I'm joking, of course, I'm joking.
Yeah.
Anyway, if we're ready, let's review Season 4, Episode 11 of Star Trek Enterprise, Observer Effect. So in the teaser, as Enterprise is orbiting a nearby planet, Travis and Malcolm are rapidly playing chess on board the ship in the mess hall. In reality, however, they are under the control of two non-corporeal aliens. I think that's how you pronounce the word, non-corporeal.
Yeah.
They talk about the game in technical terms and discuss the humans that they are observing on Enterprise. When Mayweather asks Reed how the humans will react to what they find on the planet's surface, Reed answers that, in his experience, at least one member of every species that has come here has died as a result. He also mentions that some species have lost an entire crew.
Yeah.
Now, for the purposes of this review, I am going to have to do something to indicate whether we're actually talking about Travis and Malcolm or the Travis and Malcolm that are being hosted by these non-corporeal aliens. So I think what I'll have to do is, rather than doing air quotes, doesn't work on the podcast.
Nope.
I might have to use the words "not Travis" and "not Malcolm."
Did you write that?
I couldn't think of a better way of doing it.
Yeah, that's why we need to release the video version of this podcast so you can do air quotes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, we pretty rapidly know that those are not Reed and Mayweather, but yeah, it surprised me. The beginning of the episode, I was okay. They're playing chess. What's going on? What are they talking about? And then, we quickly realize that they are under the control of aliens.
So it did seem really weird. They were being very clinical about the game. They were being very detached about how the humans will react. Again, air quotes, sorry, for what they'll find on the planet's surface.
Yeah.
So you could tell straight away, before we even knew or even worked out, that they were possessed, for want of a better word, by aliens.
Yeah, well, there was
something was. Yeah, exactly. That something was wrong. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is going to be.
Sorry, especially when they said, they look at the board and they say chess in three turn or 7 turn or what. So, but they're not that good at chess.
No, and I don't know whether you also noticed when they were playing, and let's say Travis said, "You'll win this, or this game will be won in 5 moves." They then stopped the game and started another one.
Yeah.
As if they knew it was a foregone conclusion. It's just really, really weird start to the episode. So into Act 1 then. In a shuttle pod, Trip and Hoshi are returning to Enterprise from the M-class planet where they were excavating a Klingon garbage site. And sounds like fun, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Tucker hails the starship and speaks with Captain Archer. He tells the captain that their search was unsuccessful, and all they found was an old power cell, some empty ration packs, and a latrine. Yum. Suddenly, Tucker starts coughing uncontrollably and eventually collapses. Hoshi informs the senior officers of Tucker's condition. Not Mayweather and not Reed watch as Archer asks Hoshi to pilot the shuttle pod into the launch bay and requests that T'Pol notifies Phlox to be ready. Yeah.
Once again, I was surprised. I didn't expect something like that. But yeah, as you said, it sounded very, very funny what they had to do on that planet. I don't know when the Enterprise crew turned into a latrine digger.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of going where no one has gone before. I mean, yeah, digging into Klingon toilets is not exactly my idea of fun.
No, I have to.
But I suppose, as much as anything else, they are a research vessel, aren't they? So they have to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they were actually looking to see what kind of stuff could have been salvaged from the site. I don't know.
well, we never knew what they were doing there, and that's not the point of the episode anyway.
No, totally not. Archer and Phlox watch Tucker and Hoshi from outside the decon chamber. Archer says that the shuttle pod will have to be inspected to check whether any of its environmental systems were the cause of Tucker's condition. Phlox tells Hoshi that the 3 landing parties have returned to Enterprise with no ill effects, and passes medikits to them through an opening in the bulkhead. He asks for samples of their blood, which he can then begin to analyse. Hoshi then starts to cough, and recalls that Tucker started coughing shortly before he lost consciousness. Phlox tells his 2 patients to get him their blood samples as soon as possible, and then leaves with Archer. As he and the captain walk through a corridor that leads away from the decon unit, he informs Archer that he is having difficulty determining the cause of their infection using standard scans.
Yeah, he seemed troubled, our good old Phlox.
I don't... This could have been the first time where I've actually found him completely stumped, completely flummoxed by conditions that he's observed. Yeah, he's seen things before that he couldn't understand, but at least he had theories that could explain them. But in this case, that doesn't seem to be.
And it was always, well, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to find out. And it was kind of taking that on the on the light side, but it was he seemed very worried this time. So maybe it was just to add to the drama of the episode, but yeah, Dr. Phlox was not really confident in what he saw on the scans. Which
is not Phlox.
No.
I mean, you could be forgiven for thinking that Phlox might be under the control of an alien as well, but no, in this case, he wasn't.
Not in this case, no.
In another corridor, Not Mayweather mentions that he studied Not Reed's report on how the Klingons dealt with the infection, to which Not Reed answers that they have responded typically for a species at their level of development. When Not Mayweather comments that he believes Archer and the Klingon commander acted differently, Not Reed disagrees. Not Mayweather argues that the Klingon commander didn't allow his landing party to beam back on board their ship, although Archer did. In response, Not Reed explains that both courses of actions were actually extremely similar. The areas of the ship that Tucker and Hoshi have visited since their return, the launch bay and the decon chamber, are completely isolated from the rest of the starship. He claims that it doesn't matter if a member of the landing party returns to their vessel, and that the aliens learned absolutely everything they can from the humans. Not Mayweather remembers that, like the humans, the Cardassians were also concerned for each other. However, Not Reed's response is that the Cardassians eventually killed the infected members of their crew, as did the Klingons, if not quite so rapidly. Although Not Mayweather seems hopeful that the humans may overcome the virus, Not Reed answers that he's been observing aliens for the past 800 years and hasn't yet been surprised. Their protocol dictates that they should now question the infected crew.
Yeah, there's one thing weird in this in the explanations from Not Reed, that he said that the launch bay and the decon chamber are isolated from the rest of the ship. So since when did launch bay since when was launch bay isolated from the rest of the ship, when there's only one door between the corridor and launch bay? So that's first point. And then how did they go from the launch bay to the decon chamber if those are the only two places isolated from the rest of the ship?
So the only thing that I could glean from that is that perhaps they're suggesting that the launch bay and the decon chamber are the only parts of the ship that can be isolated from the rest of the ship. Obviously, if you're coming back from a landing party and you're in the shuttle pod, there is always a risk of bringing back some form of contamination as a result. So the obvious next location would be the decon chamber. So they may well have some kind of bulkhead or airlock or something that provides a level of protection between the launch bay decon chamber and the rest of the ship. There might be one there that we're just not aware of. I don't know.
Okay, that's possible. Okay, they could have been transported, maybe.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose
Although
that could happen.
I just saw a TNG episode tonight from the end of season 2 of TNG, and Riker was infected with a virus, and the transporter wouldn't let him come back because it wouldn't. It wasn't able to use the biofilters. So
of course, yeah,
yeah. Anyway,
but also the transporter is still experimental on Enterprise,
as we saw last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's suppose that that they're and there's another thing that we don't know if that's contagious. We know that they were infected by a virus, but maybe once the virus is in a human, they can't contaminate someone else. So maybe they walk from airlock to launch bay to decontamination. Anyway,
don't know. It's probably not really relevant to the particular storyline anyway. In the decontamination chamber, Tucker looks over the temporary medication which Phlox has provided to be used for muscle pain and nausea. There's also a cough suppressant in there, but Hoshi comments that they aren't coughing anymore, and she thinks that could be because they're slowly recovering. Trip reminds her that Phlox issued the medication, which he feels is an adequate reason to take them. Not Mayweather arrives at decontamination and asks what's in the hyperspray. Trip explains that Phlox has been unable to make a diagnosis, and Not Mayweather continues to question them, asking if they've ever faced serious illness before, and how their present condition compares with any other illnesses they may have experienced. Trip gradually gets annoyed by the entity's questions and eventually closes the hatch that allowed Not Mayweather to observe them. Now, this was a really, really weird scene to watch.
Yeah.
Because we knew who they were, but Trip, we believe, still doesn't. So for him to be there and to be asking those questions and to be I suppose asking fairly specific clinical questions, it seems more like a questioning rather than a "how you feeling, mate" kind of thing.
Yeah, and completely out of character. I mean, he's a pilot.
Precisely, he's a navigator. He's nothing to do with the medical staff.
Yeah. Damn it, Jim! I'm a pilot. I'm not a doctor.
I cannot believe it's taken us until episode 11 for that quote to come out. Excellent. Back in sickbay, Phlox is analysing Hoshi and Tucker's blood samples when Not Reed enters. He claims that he has a headache, so the doctor tries to find some relevant medication. Not Reed is interested in the computer displays of Hoshi and Tucker's blood. Phlox returns and scans Not Reed, determining that the headache isn't serious. Well, actually, I thought he said that he couldn't detect any form of headache.
Yeah.
Not Reed explains that it could get worse, though, so Phlox administers him with a mild analgesic. Not Reed asks Phlox how he plans to create an effective antidote, but when Phlox begins to believe that Not Reed is afraid that the virus is contagious, he shows him the door.
Yeah. Again, this scene was also very weird, but maybe a little less because Phlox quickly dismisses Reed. But I mean, Reed is security and tactical, I guess. So for him to ask a medical question like that, it should have made Phlox question why he was asking this question, but instead he just showed him the door.
Exactly, and this is exactly what I've noted down for this scene, is that we now have two distinct situations where senior crew members are behaving unpredictably and unusually, and I would have expected that if a crew member, particularly an officer, was exhibiting unpredictable behaviour, then that should be reported up the chain. particularly when you've got two other officers in the decon chamber at the moment suffering from a virus of which we don't know the origin.
Exactly. Yep. That's. So I don't know if it's a mistake from the writers or if it's just us, geeking out on these shows. But again, I guess 80% of the people wouldn't mind.
It's gone
90,
down. I thought it was 90. Yeah,
90. Okay, so 90% of the viewers wouldn't even notice that.
No, probably not.
But yeah, still it was. I was like you. I was in front of my TV and I was thinking, Flox, what are you doing? He's asking strange questions. He's in sick bay. Sit him on the bed and scan him. I don't know.
Although Flox isn't an officer, though, is he? He's officially civilian.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe he hasn't had that level of training. And to be fair, up to this point, I don't think there have been any other officers that have been around when those conversations have been having. So actually, maybe I'm a bit ahead of myself here.
Yeah, you never do that.
All the time. In the decontamination chamber, Tucker asks Hoshi if she's ever seen a movie from the 20th century entitled The Andromeda Strain. Unaware of the film, the semi-delirious Hoshi guesses that it's about a Dr. Andromeda who builds a monster which eventually kills him. I have to admit, I thought the same. When Tucker tells her that the film actually involves an alien virus, she replies that she finds it hard to differentiate between the plots of many films that Tucker likes due to their extreme similarities.
Yeah,
Tucker recalls that he got into a lot of trouble at the Starfleet Training Command, and Hoshi confesses that she was dismissed from Starfleet. Now, I didn't know this.
No.
She says that when she was trying to run a poker game for some of the new recruits and several members of the training staff that were stationed there, a company commander attempted to terminate the game by sweeping the chips off the table. As a result, Sato, who is an experienced student of Aikido, broke the commander's arm. Tucker wonders, as was I at this point, how she managed to be assigned to Enterprise following the incident, but she replies that Starfleet was desperate for language specialists at the time, and she was reassigned to Starfleet on probation.
Yeah, we kind of saw that in the pilot when Archer comes to see Sato while she's giving lessons to some students. I didn't know the story about her being dismissed from Starfleet training prior to being recalled on the Enterprise, but I knew she was civilian when Archer came to see her.
Back in sickbay, Phlox tells Archer that Hoshi and Tucker are suffering from a silicon-based virus. Archer wonders how the virus could have evolved on an M-class planet where only carbon-based life is known to exist. Phlox theorizes that it may have travelled to the planet on the surface of a meteorite, which could explain why only one of the 4 landing parties sent by Enterprise contracted it. He informs Archer that there is no record of the virus in the Denobulan medical database, so he'll have to work without prior research. He says that the pathogen is reproducing at an incredibly fast rate, and that, if he cannot find an antidote, Hoshi and Tucker may only have 5 hours to live. Dun dun dun.
Another random number. 5. Why not? Why?
I would have laughed so much if he'd said 47 hours to live. That would have been brilliant.
I have a question.
Go for it.
How can a silicon-based virus live in a carbon-based life form? I thought those two were incompatible.
They are, and I do believe that was a question that was asked by, or that was an extension to the question that was originally asked by Archer.
Okay. I missed that.
I think my interpretation of that question would be, how can a silicon-based virus affect a carbon-based life form? No, I have no idea. I have no idea at all, unless it
adapted.
Yeah, it could have adapted. It could have adapted to the host that it was in. Oh, any number of things. Any number of things.
We need to have a biologist on this show. So if anyone knows a biologist, please let us know. We have some questions. Yeah,
we certainly do. I'm just very, very quickly scanning about silicon-based viruses, and the only thing that really comes up, unsurprisingly, is the beings that we're talking about on this particular episode.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. Again, I'm seeing a side of Phlox that I'd never seen before. I had always I recognised him as this all-seeing, all-knowing medical professional, and yet again, like we observed earlier on, he is stumped. He just doesn't know what this is.
Absolutely. So, no record in the Denebulan medical database, which is by itself surprising, because the medical database is like huge, and Phlox has no idea, and at this point probably doesn't have any clue how to start a cure. It was. Well, it's interesting to see some other side of the characters, although it's not in our comfort zone. Air quotes again. That we have a Phlox that is not prepared to face a situation. I thought it was an interesting change in a small change in the character.
Yeah, I don't wish to celebrate people's shortcomings, but it is good to know that certain characters and certain people, they are. I was about to say they are human. What a stupid thing to say. They are. They're not infallible.
Yes,
they do have faults. I think now we've probably observed that for every one of the principal characters on NX-01 during the course of the last 4 seasons of Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
T'Pol particularly.
Yeah.
Mm. So on to Act 2 then. As Enterprise continues its orbit of the planet, Not Mayweather and Not Reed discuss their observations of the crew in the mess hall. Not Mayweather tells Not Reed that Phlox has managed to make a diagnosis, and that no one on board has made the decision to abandon the affected members of the crew. Not Reed believes that everyone aboard the ship will die as a result.
Well, he's really negative, this Not Reed. I mean, he's really quick to say, okay, that's done, let's move on, they're gonna die, blah, blah, blah. And the Not Mayweather is a lot more interesting as an observer.
Yeah. I don't think we've actually established their rank at this stage, but no. We do find out later on that one of them is the other's superior in whatever kind of hierarchy they work in.
Mm-hmm.
But everything does seem to be incredibly clinical, very detached, very matter of fact. The mere fact that Not Reed uttered the phrase, everybody aboard this ship will die, and he just said it as if it was, everybody will die. Whatever. It's it's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess that's where the title of the episode comes from. The observer effect. They're observing, and that's, if you think about it, it's not that different from the Prime Directive, where they should not interfere with pre-warped civilization. If they were observing some civilization affected by a virus, and they had. Well, there's actually an episode like that. Was it? I guess in every Star Trek series, I'm pretty sure there's one in Next Gen and one in DS9 where they have a cure and they meet a civilization that's pre-warp, and that they refuse to give the cure because that would change the evolution of said civilization. So, except that in Star Trek they always break the Prime Directive.
Yeah, I mean, there's one episode that was actually in Enterprise, might have been season 2, when they landed on a well, it wasn't so much of a planet. It was I think it was a ship that had been launched from Earth some centuries earlier. They believed they were on Earth still, but they were following. They deified a particular person, a particular entity, and the crew had. Am I doing the same thing? Am I thinking about a flipping Orville episode? I think I'm talking about an Orville episode. So yeah, scrap that. But but yeah, the Prime Directive, the aliens did actually talk about the fact that they're only allowed to observe, they're not allowed to intervene.
Yeah.
And I know that becomes a big thing towards the end of the episode.
Yeah.
This is not the Orville, remember.
Yeah. We're going to have to start that podcast one day.
Well, I've suggested it. Just saying. Archer arrives outside the decon chamber and tries to open the observation hatch. Trip thinks that Not Mayweather has returned, but is relieved to find instead that his visitor is Captain Archer. He tells the captain that Hoshi is asleep and that the medication which Phlox gave them seems to be working. Archer informs him that the doctor has identified the pathogen, but so far has been unsuccessful in creating an antidote. When Tucker begins to speak pessimistically about the amount of time he has left to live, Archer tells him that his immune system could still reject the virus. Trip recalls that, due to their carbon-based nature, human bodies don't repel silicon, which he learned from Exobiology 101. When Archer advises him not to give up, Tucker seems optimistic about exploring new worlds. Deeply saddened by the engineer's ill health, the captain asks him to rest.
Yeah, as Tucker said that humans can't repel silicon-based life form. So maybe there's the possibility exists because we see it in this episode, but maybe we missed something in earlier series. I don't remember any episode of Star Trek where a silicon-based virus or life form interacted with or infected a human. But hey, they talk about that in Exobiology 101, so...
Yes, apparently they do.
I have to go back to that lessons. So on top of the biologist, we also need an exobiologist on this show.
Yes.
Probably an astrophysicist too.
I'm trying to find information about Exobiology 101, but I can't find any courses running at the moment. I'll write to the academy and find out if they're doing any courses local to here.
Yeah, okay. I can see in the university in Lausanne. I'm sure they have something.
As they walk through a corridor, Not Mayweather and Not Reed agree that they are searching for indications of advanced rational intelligence within the species of which they observe. However, Not Reed remarks that Captain Archer hasn't shown any signs of rational intellect. By allowing Hoshi and Tucker to remain on board, he has increased the possibility that their quarantine may fail. However, Not Mayweather is certain that Archer knows the risk that the virus represents, and that perhaps it is not as important to him as being committed to his crew. Not Reed thinks that Not Mayweather's suggestion is as probable as the chance that Archer is unaware of how unfortunate that this situation has become. So in order to learn whether Archer realises the risk of contamination, Mayweather suggests that he and Reed transfer to new... Not Mayweather suggests that he and Not Reed transfer to new hosts. He elects the bodies of Phlox and T'Pol to be used, since Archer's decisions are based on their findings. Not Reed responds by reminding Not Mayweather that the non-corporeal beings have a strict non-interference policy, and claims that the more hosts they occupy, the greater the chance of accidentally influencing the crew. On the other hand, Not Mayweather states that the more crew members they inhabit, the more they will be able to observe. I can't fault that logic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, everything was spot on in this scene.
Yeah, it was. The only thing that I'm uncertain of is that the greater chance of accidentally influencing the crew, the more hosts they occupy. The only thing that I can think that would apply to is by observing the unpredictable behaviour of the occupied hosts. Because in fact, I'm spoiling a bit later on, when the aliens occupy a human host, the human doesn't remember it. They don't remember the occupation. They don't remember anything that happened during that time.
Yeah, it's even, well, maybe we're going to talk about that later because they explain that. But yeah, it's more than they don't remember. It's that they remember something else. They remember whatever the hosts wanted them to remember.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that later on because there is an observation I have on exactly that.
Okay.
During the next set of occupations. Back in the decontamination chamber, Tucker and Hoshi discuss her linguistic capabilities. Tucker reveals that he has always been jealous of her ability to learn new languages, whilst Hoshi claims that she wishes she had Tucker's skill to repair warp engines with, quote, duct tape and a pocket knife, as she puts it.
Yeah, well,
he tells her
that's what he does.
Pretty much. I mean, he does seem to be able to have this inane ability to fix anything with anything, but you don't have any hardware stores or tool shops around, so you've kind of got to make do with what you've got, haven't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
He tells her that he hasn't always been good at construction and gives a rather humorous example of how he once enjoyed taking things apart. Once he'd finished recounting this story, Sato stands up and sees Phlox and T'Pol at the observation window. Obviously unknown to her, they are now occupied by the aliens, although both she and Tucker seem surprised at the sight of them. When Tucker asks how their research is progressing, Not T'Pol replies that they are waiting on some new test results, and Not Phlox adds that they have come to check on the condition of their patients. When Tucker asks them to return to sickbay and continue their work, Not T'Pol claims they intend to immediately do exactly that. Not Phlox is more reluctant to leave than Not T'Pol, but eventually does so too. Sato realises that Not Phlox and Not T'Pol's joint visit could be an indication that they're almost finished their work in sickbay, although Tucker isn't as optimistic.
Yeah. Again, that was the weird situation with Not T'Pol and Not Phlox not acting as they should have, and yet the two in the decon chamber didn't really react to that. So
they weren't in a position to do it. They wouldn't have picked up on that in their state. I wouldn't have thought.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Grant, I agree with that.
So whoever these beings are and whatever they're doing it absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because in their current occupations, T'Pol and Phlox, there's nobody around to observe them that's actually in a stable frame of mind at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I did think that Hoshi looking up and seeing T'Pol and Phlox at the observation window, that was a really freaky thing even for me to see.
Yeah,
they were just standing there staring, observing.
Yeah, like
if you like,
in like ghosts or suddenly you turn and you see a ghost at the window or some things like that. Yeah, it was freaky.
And I think under normal circumstances, anybody seeing that would think to themselves, that isn't right.
Yeah.
But again, they're not in their right frame of mind.
No.
So,
No.
yeah.
So did you manage to understand who not Reed was in those two? Whether it was not Flox or not Tipple?
Yes, I think not Reed was not Tipple, because the reluctance that Flox demonstrated by not wanting to leave them was very much the same level of humanity. It's the wrong word, but hopefully you know what I mean. That Mayweather, or not Mayweather, was displaying.
Yeah, I agree. I came to the same conclusion, but it was not 100% clear straight from the beginning. Yeah.
But to be honest, before you asked that question, I hadn't even considered which one was which. So good spot on your side.
Thanks.
While not Flox and not Tipple wander through a corridor, having problems with the word wander. They're not exactly just wandering through a corridor. I suppose they are, aren't they? Because they're not doing anything with any particular any particular purpose.
Nope.
Not Flox comments that Hoshi and Tucker are very brave in the way that they're facing death. Not Tipple replies that their intelligence is in question, not their courage. When Not Flox judges that Not Tipple wants the humans to fail, she answers that it isn't a contest. She explains that it is more of a question of whether the humans are sufficiently intelligent for the aliens to initiate first contact with them. Not Flox suggests that the aliens also consider other qualities in that decision, but Not Tipple clarifies that they have used that characteristic for 10,000 years. She maintains that they aren't responsible for changing the factor which is used as an indicator, but Not Flox asks, who is?
Yeah, we finally have an answer to what are they doing here, and they are actually observing to know if they should do first contact with the human or not. So that's at least we have that explanation, which actually makes sense if you put it all together. They are probably very advanced as non-corporal beings. I mean, they have the ability to possess humans. Their ability to, as we are going to see later on, change their memories and to do a lot more than just inhabit living humans. So yeah, they are trying to realize if the species they are observing are worthy of being of first contact.
Have there been any other instances of first contact where they have made a conscious decision on who to make first contact with based on a choice of different races? I don't remember this anywhere else. Where I'm going with this is that this race, we find out the name of them later on. This race is clearly well advanced in their intelligence.
Yeah.
To be going through this process, which has taken a phenomenally long time, to then be able to stand on the sidelines and watch as people go through their lives and deaths. I suppose my question is, why has no one made first contact with them yet?
Maybe
unless they're really good at hiding themselves away.
Yeah, they're non-corporal, so it should be very difficult to find them. I
suppose if they're wiping out the memories of any operations that have taken place.
Yeah, and also we have a classic case of we've been doing this for so many years, we're not going to change this, and then there's someone who said, "Why not?" And that someone is our non-Travis.
Yes, and non-Travis, the subordinate of the two.
Yeah, is the grain of sand in the well-oiled machine.
It is. I find it quite interesting that you've got this subordinate being, possibly younger. I don't know how it works in that particular race of beings.
Couple 100,000 years.
Yeah. What's a few 100,000 years between beings? That there seems to be a way of doing things. I mean, we've observed this in the Vulcans as well. There is a certain way of doing things, but then someone comes along with a fresh pair of eyes or fresh pair of auras, I don't know, and starts to question the way things are being done. We've always done things this way, but this being is asking the question, why? Why are we doing things this way? Why aren't we trying to do things in a different way, almost to benefit the beings that we're encountering? Yeah, okay, they're trying to determine who they're going to make first contact with, so they don't really want to directly interact with them as themselves. But it's that element of doubt where the questions being asked, and the senior of the two is starting to kind of follow that line of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to think, why? Why are we doing this? Why is this the way it has to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Back on the bridge of the Enterprise, Archer and Reed, proper Reed this time, look over sensor data from the planet below. They have detected a crater which could prove Phlox's theory that the virus travelled to the planet on a meteorite. The captain thinks that the crater could be the source of the pathogen, and if so, the Klingons who set up the campsite, which Tucker and Sato explored, would also have been infected. Archer orders Reed to contact Starfleet to find out whether the crew of the Klingon ship which visited this world were able to develop a cure. I think we know the answer to this question already.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned it earlier on.
Mm-hmm. They were affected and they killed the sick Klingons. That's at this absolutely. Point, when we see Reed and Mayweather, I was wondering, why are they acting so normal? I knew they were not the aliens, but I mean they were inhabited with an alien life form, but they didn't seem to remember anything, and the answer came later on.
Yeah, I think you hinted at it earlier as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. In sickbay, the new test results which Phlox is waiting for are ready. Not T'Pol states that the aliens should now transfer into new hosts to allow Phlox and T'Pol to continue their work. So they agree to re-inhabit the bodies of Reed and Mayweather, who are on the bridge, and soon leave Phlox and T'Pol. With no indication of the aliens' presence, Phlox observes a view screen which shows the results of the blood test that he performed earlier. He comments that the alterations they made to the blood's immune receptors weren't effective. Indicating an area of the view screen, T'Pol mentions that it may show evidence that the virus is sensitive to ionizing radiation. However, the amount needed to kill the virus could also kill Tucker and Hoshi. Phlox agrees, and, with his encouragement, she begins to prepare new blood samples for testing.
Yep. Again, I was wondering why they were acting so naturally. I mean, they were probably not there when they were inhabited, so suddenly they find themselves at this place again.
Yeah, although we don't know that. They may have been stood there looking at the view screen. They may have been put on pause from what they were doing, and then they went back there afterwards.
But the test results came while they were possessed by the
fair
the
point.
aliens.
Yep, fair point.
Now, question.
Mm-hmm.
When the aliens inhabit Malcolm and Mayweather, they choose to keep the same hosts. I mean, it would have been fun if they would have switched. Like not Reed become not Mayweather, and it would have been fun for the viewers.
Yeah,
but I guess
suppose from their point of view, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter at all.
No,
but I don't know whether they did it intentionally, but they have actually managed so far to inherit the person that mirrors their own ranking. So the one that we believe is the more senior in occupied Reed, who is senior to Travis.
Yeah.
And he also in what's the word I'm trying to look for? I keep saying inheriting. It's not inheriting. Occupying to Pole, who is also senior to Phlox. So that may have been done intentionally.
Yeah, let's say they did that on purpose. And that would have confused the audience anyway.
By this point, I was fairly confused anyway.
Well, yeah.
Trying to work out exactly who was who.
Yeah.
In the decontamination chamber, Hoshi wakes from a nightmare. She dreamt that she was in Brazil, where in reality she taught as a university professor of languages shortly before her assignment as Enterprise's communications officer. In the nightmare, which seemed very real to her, a shuttle was on its way to take her to the ship. Tucker reminds her that she is aboard the Enterprise, which seems to calm her. She tells Tucker she didn't have enough time to say goodbye to her students, but the engineer promises that she will see them again.
Yeah, we saw that on the pilots. Oh no, yeah, the pilot. That she had to leave very, very fast. She didn't have time to finish the year.
Yeah, I couldn't work out what the relevance of this particular scene was, unless it was just a delirious demonstration of things that that are playing on her mind.
Yeah, I thought it was just to establish that she was very sick and her mind wasn't working properly, which explains what comes next.
Yes. On the bridge, Archer informs not Mayweather and not Reed, again, that he's spoken to members of Starfleet Command who are working through diplomatic channels to contact the Klingons. However, their communication may be unnecessary as Archer has found evidence of a Klingon alloy in orbit of the planet. The alloy is used as the Klingon's standard hull plating and comprises the remains of a Klingon shuttlecraft. Archer has realised that the vessel's crew, infected with the silicon-based virus, were killed by their commanding officer. Not Reed remembers that the crew didn't even plead for mercy. But when he notices that Archer is watching him, he disguises the recollection as an observation on Klingon honour. When Not Mayweather asks if learning about what happened to the Klingons helps the crew of Enterprise in any way, Archer replies that it would be pointless to ask the Klingons for the cure, since they now know that the Klingons didn't develop one. He says he would do anything it took to acquire the antidote if the Klingons had developed it.
Well, they have a cure, sort of.
What?
Kill
a torpedo.
Yeah, a torpedo.
Yep, that'd work.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of that scene, you almost saw the moment that Reed and Mayweather were reinfected by...
Oh, you clearly see him. See.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they're working and suddenly
they look at each
Reed, because Reed's at the communication station at that point, I think, and you can see him look up and then look around. He looks down at Travis, and Travis looks up and looks back at him. So there's obviously a recognition that they are reoccupied, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's interesting scene, this one, to kind of answers the question about the Klingons and how they dealt with it, and obviously they did deal with it the way that you would expect the Klingons to deal with it, by just wiping out the problem.
Yep.
So back to the bit that you were hinting to, Yannick, in the decon chamber, Hoshi is desperately trying to escape. She is frantically speaking different languages, including a diverse range of Terran as well as Klingonese. When Tucker tells her that she won't be able to break the security lockout code, she answers that math is just another language. An alarm blares, signalling that there is a quarantine breach in their area because Hoshi has broken the code. Is Klingonese even a word? I would just say Klingon.
Yeah. Well, I've heard Klingon that word that I can't pronounce.
Yeah, I've heard it
Before.
elsewhere. In fact, while we've been doing this show, the word Klingonese has been used.
Yeah.
But I've only ever heard it mentioned as Klingon before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe both are. Maybe one is the Klingon version, and one is the English version, which everybody speaks on this show. Yeah, the remark math is just another language. While it's true, math won't help her break a security code. I mean, it's at where she is, it's only electronics components, and there's no way for her to read the code that's probably embedded into the keypad. So yeah, math is just another language, but in this instance, I'm pretty sure that won't help anyone.
Well, first of all, I'd hope that the code isn't embedded in the keypad, because that would be a phenomenal security risk.
Well, I was talking about the source code that drives.
I say, okay, no,
not
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's not a post-it behind the keyboard. No.
All she was doing there was brute forcing a combination lock.
Yeah.
So I don't see how math would have. Sorry, maths. We're in the I don't. Would you call it math or maths? As a Frenchman. Well, you wouldn't call
French,
it either, would you?
In French, you say math. So mathematique. Yeah. So math.
Yeah. So that's MATH, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just us British that uses an S then. Okay. Back on the bridge, Not Reed reports the breach to Archer and looks at Not Mayweather, surprised by Hoshi's actions. So clearly they're not expecting this at all.
Yeah.
And I think they have, up to this point, I mean, we're halfway through the episode, but I think up to this point, they have been very surprised by how things have been done.
Yeah.
By the humans. As
we saw earlier, one is surprised and wants to observe more and maybe, give them a chance because they didn't see anything like that before. And the other one just goes, yeah, okay, they're just a bit different, but the outcome will be the same. Move on. Next.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the very end of that act, we see Hoshi walking through a corridor outside the decon bay in an extremely delirious state.
Yeah, which is, I guess, the point of the nightmare scene.
Yeah, that nightmare has clearly affected her into doing something. Is put an idea in her head that she now feels she has to enact.
Yeah.
So on to Act 3 then. We carry on from the previous scene. Actually, we see Hoshi opening a door at the other end of the corridor she was walking down and walking through it. On the bridge, Not Reed informs Archer that Hoshi is overriding the safety interlocks on D-deck. The captain orders him to shut down all power on that deck in an attempt to seal all the doors there. As Hoshi tries to break through another door, sections of the corridor behind her darken. Eventually, the entire deck is plunged into darkness and a red emergency light is automatically activated. Tucker appears behind her and tries to persuade her to stop what she's doing. He tells her that the door which she's attempting to open is actually an airlock. If she succeeds, she and Tucker will die of exposure in space. She replies in Russian, insisting that she must say goodbye to her students before she leaves for Enterprise. When Tucker attempts to hold her back from the airlock, Hoshi wrestles with him. But she is weakened by the virus, however, and doesn't have enough energy to fight against him for long. Tucker misunderstands her when she says, "I need to tell them while there's still time." He thinks she's speaking about the senior officers when she says they, and that she believes she and Tucker will die because of the virus. He reminds her of Archer's determination and leads her back to the decon chamber, where the alarm ceases to sound. As she rests on one of the bunks there, Tucker contacts sickbay and tells Archer and Phlox that they have returned to quarantine. The doctor instructs Tucker to use a hypo spray and injects Sato with 3 units of sonambutril, which is an extremely high dosage. The captain adds that the sonambutril will ensure that Sato remains in the decon chamber. Complying with the doctor's orders, Tucker remarks on her ability to escape. Once he has injected Sato, Archer tells him to do the same to himself. When he argues with that decision, Phlox explains that the virus is incompatible with carbon-based life, and that he hasn't yet found a method to predict its attack. After some debate, Phlox and Captain Archer persuade Tucker to comply. After injecting the sonambutril, the engineer collapses down on the other bunk.
Yeah. This scene was really intense, as in she was. Well, I thought she was going to beat Tucker in the corridor, but yeah, she was weakened. Although yeah, she's probably stronger than him in close combat. Also, there's no power in this corridor except emergency power. And yet the communication works between the decon chamber and the bridge, because when they're back in the decon chamber, Tucker calls the bridge to tell them, okay, we're back. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was except if the communication is on the emergency power.
I would have thought that the compads would have been powered by a central comms system.
Yeah.
I don't know, just being very technical for a moment, that effectively power over Ethernet. So the power gets delivered down the line where the communication takes place. I don't know. Something didn't cross my mind at all.
Yeah.
One thing that did cross my mind was it seems to be a trope that when power is removed from an area of something, whether it be a Starfleet starship, or whether it be an underground medical facility, is that you see the lights go out from the bottom end of the corridor, and then they go vroom, 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 vroom,
yes,
and they all turn off one by one until the one that's right above your head goes off and you plunge into darkness.
And they make a lot of noise.
And it doesn't work that way.
No,
you switch the lights off, the lights go off. Simple as.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you heard me trying not to chuckle when I mentioned the red emergency light, but it reminded me of that scene on Red Dwarf when Rimmer says, I think he said, go to yellow alert, and Crichton says, "Are you sure, sir? It does mean changing the bulb."
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Moving swiftly onwards. So back in
should do a podcast about Red Dwarf.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can get that one past the missus. Back in sickbay, Phlox reports that he and T'Pol have managed to isolate a specific frequency of radiation which disrupts the silicon matrix of the virus. However, the dosage of radiation which the potential patient would need to be subjected to would be lethal. Archer thinks that there must be a way to cure the patient without killing them. Phlox agrees and notifies the captain that he is currently working on that. Archer advises him to quicken his research. Yeah. Like he's dragging his heels at the moment. He's trying to go as slowly as he possibly can. Yeah, I think I'll speed up for this one.
Yeah, well, they had 5 hours to leave, and even though in the actual episode it was only 20 minutes, I guess a lot of times was a lot of time passed since the beginning of this story. So they're probably close to the deadline.
Yeah. Well, at this point we have no concept of how much actual universe time has elapsed since the 5 hour clock was started. But also the 5 hours was a finger in the air, wasn't it? There was we didn't know how long they were going to have left.
And the
it
fact
was just
that
an estimate.
the fact that we don't know how much time passed and so how much time is left, it brings a lot to the ambience of this episode. Like we're stuck with them when we don't know what's going to happen, and yet, I mean, at least that's what I felt. Like I was drawn to this episode, and I just couldn't wait for next scene to know what was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we reading out comments?
Yeah, we could. Because,
okay, so a comment has just been put into the stream chat because as Yannick mentioned, we're doing this on a live stream. We do have Nate who's listening to us, and he says in response to my question earlier on about the lights going off one by one, he says when lighting is controlled through some kind of PLC system, they do step the lights or devices off so as not to cause a power surge. The, in quotes, angry pixies have a back pressure kind of effect. A real example to mitigate that is that they have diodes in lots of switches to reduce that pressure. If all the lights or power was to go out, it would cause a power surge.
Okay.
And that kind of makes sense. I suppose if you have the same issue of here, if we have a power cut, certainly in my place of work, if we have a power cut, then we make sure we go around and turn everything off. Because if the power comes back on again, you've suddenly got this intense load where all the lights and all the servers and all the computers and everything is trying to switch back on at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I presume we're talking about the opposite effect. So rather than having a power dip, if suddenly all the lights go off, the power is still being delivered at that same level for a very short period of time before it thinks, hang on, we don't need all this power, and drops it down.
Yeah, so diode and transistors and capacitors.
Yeah, well, they only accept a certain voltage.
Yeah, okay, I can see how this can work. Yeah.
Oh, Electronics 101. See, every day's a school day.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, of sorts, yeah. Anyway, back to Star Trek Enterprise, which I think we started talking about.
About an hour and 20 minutes ago.
On the bridge, Not Mayweather walks to the tactical station and whispers to Not Reed that they should stop the effects of the virus. Not Mayweather recalls that they came to observe the crew's reaction to the unexpected, not to watch the crew suffer. Not Reed doesn't recommend their discussion take place on the bridge, so Not Mayweather advises that they speak elsewhere. My question, immediately following that, was, well, where? Where would you go? Because if they suddenly leave the bridge together, as they have done quite a bit, and no one's asked any questions about where they've been, then that would look really suspicious. I didn't expect what happened next to happen.
Oh, I kind of expected that when they said, okay. I know, when one of those said, I know exactly where we can go. I know where they're going. And I was right.
You were. So, in the decon chamber, Hoshi and Tucker sit straight up as they are occupied by the two non-corporeal aliens. Not Tucker is surprised by how the sensations of his host differ from those of the other crew members. Uncomfortably, the alien comments that he, like Hoshi, is also experiencing physical pain. He wonders why humans should endure pain, which he regards as a weakness. Not Hoshi claims that the desire to overcome pain will eventually drive humans to evolve beyond the limitations of the physical world. Not Tucker hypothesizes that Not Hoshi's argument might not be applicable to every species which they encounter, but Not Hoshi answers that it can at least be applied to their own species.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely did not expect them to re-inhabit Tucker and Hoshi. That was I thought it was actually a really, really clever thing to do.
Yeah, what I was surprised with is that I was expecting them to be sick as Hoshi and Tucker were, but apparently they were feeling the discomfort, but they were perfectly alert, and they were sitting like as if nothing was wrong. So that's what surprised me. Not the fact that they were inhabited by the aliens.
Yeah, well, they're just consciousness, aren't they? They're not physical beings. It's not as if it's a physical being inhabiting another physical being. So the concept of pain and illness and dizziness and physical weakness doesn't apply to them.
No, but Oshi's and Trip's body were weakened. So even if you're a non-corporeal entity, when you inhabit a body, if that body is weakened and tired, you shouldn't be able to wake up like that. But we saw later on that they can actually do some stuff.
I was about to say exactly that. Yes, they kind of take that to the next level later on.
Yeah.
In sickbay, Phlox is shocked when he sees Not Sato and Not Tucker standing in the decon chamber, talking to each other. He doesn't suspect their alien influence and is puzzled that they are even awake. For a brief moment, he watches as the aliens discuss the human and Klingon crews which they have observed. Soon, Not Sato senses that they too are being observed, and the aliens leave their hosts' bodies.
Yeah, which is, I don't know, how can she know that they were being observed? It's probably the non-corporeal, I was going to say properties, ability.
It could have been some kind of spidey sense, maybe.
Yeah.
But I did hear, just before that she said that they were being observed, I heard a noise on the episode. It could have been a beep of some kind. It could have been something I don't know, but I definitely heard a noise of some kind.
When Phlox turns on the audio, maybe the camera does something when turns the audio on. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. Right, so next, when Phlox sees Not Archer and Not T'Pol walk through the doors to sickbay, he expects that they are also their usual selves. He hands Not T'Pol a pad which shows the brainwave patterns of Not Tucker and Not Sato, surprised that the patterns aren't human. When he eventually discovers that Archer and T'Pol are occupied by aliens, Phlox asks whether they are responsible for what happened to Tucker and Sato. Not Archer responds that they aren't, and Not T'Pol explains that they are only interested in studying how physical species responds to the unknown. She adds that Phlox could assist the aliens by explaining how he noticed their presence. The Doctor tells them that Sato and Tucker were sedated and therefore should not have been able to stand or talk. Not Archer tells Phlox that they were unable to distinguish between sleep and sedation, as it had been so long since they had inhabited physical beings. When Phlox asks the aliens if they can help Sato and Tucker, Not T'Pol reminds him of their non-interference protocol. The Doctor argues that they are interfering with him, which contradicts their protocol, but Not T'Pol replies that they are observing humans, not denobulans. When the alien informs him that they recently occupied his body, Phlox is surprised that he can't remember that happening, but Not Archer tells him of the simplicity of memory adjustment. The Doctor believes that since the aliens have the ability to alter human and denobulan memories, they must also be able to help Sato and Tucker. Not T'Pol refuses to assist the Doctor's patients and thanks Phlox for his help. He, however, is appalled at the aliens' actions and is not surprised that they erase memories.
Yeah, so we have the explanation for the fact that nobody remembers anything, and that nobody thinks that it's weird that they find themselves in another place than a moment before. Also, I thought that we're observing human and not the denobulans thing. That's nonsense. They're observing the Enterprise as a whole thing in front of this situation. So, because I'm pretty sure there's not that Phlox is not the only alien on this ship, and also T'Pol is not human. So why wouldn't they interact with people. So
yeah, don't know. It's a good question.
yeah, that's a mistake from the writers, I guess. I'm going to
blame everything on the script writers. Yeah,
blame them for that.
# blame writers.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I was probably going to say this towards the end, but I think that we're kind of ribbing the scriptwriters at the moment, but actually, this was an incredibly complex plot line for an Enterprise episode,
and incredibly well written.
Absolutely, it really was. I think the way they did it, and I don't know how they write these things, whether they start with what's at the end and then build up to it, or whether they come up with an idea and see where it flows. But that scene, the scene we've just discussed, is the one that kind of brings the majority of it together.
Yeah.
And answers a lot of the questions and actually now gives you an idea of exactly what it is that they're doing there and how they're doing what they're doing. So I found that scene particularly satisfying from a story perspective, because I now have a much better understanding of exactly what is going on here.
Yeah, and if we're picking on the writers, sometimes that's because we love you guys. You do an awesome job.
You can only hurt the people you love.
Yeah.
Indeed. Later on, as Not Archer and Not T'Pol are walking through a corridor outside sickbay, Not Archer thinks the humans may have developed a cure for the virus, but Not T'Pol informs him that she has watched several other species develop the same treatment, although after their patients have died. He tells him that they didn't initiate first contact procedures with any of those species, and that it would be illogical to have done so. Reminding Not Archer that their current hosts are busy members of the crew, she insists that they return to Mayweather and Reed.
Yeah, I didn't really understand why they didn't make first contact with the other species. Is it just because they found the cure, but after the patient died? So if that's the limit of we make first contact or not, that's pretty thin.
It is. It's quite shallow, but I think the aliens here, they're trying to establish contact with an intelligent community that are able to respond to a wide range of circumstances. And this circumstance here, the one that they've been observing for however long they've been observing it for, where beings approach planet, beings get infected by virus, beings return to their ship. How do they approach that? How do they handle that?
Yeah.
Do they succeed in curing them? Do they blow them up? Do they die?
Yeah. I mean, if that's the cure, because it seems to be I don't remember which one says that he saw many species develop the same cure, and Phlox said that the cure would kill the patient. So that's kind of a catch-22 situation where you have a problem and the solution is actually not better than the problem. So
yeah.
maybe there's actually no. Maybe it's the Kobayashi Maru of those aliens. There's no solution to the problem unless you cheat.
Or you change the rules.
Or you change the rules, which is
but not wanting to spoil.
Nope. We still have an hour and a half to go.
Please don't. As the Enterprise continues its orbit of the planet, Phlox and T'Pol report to Captain Archer. Phlox says that if the radiation is to be precise enough to destroy the virus without killing Sato or Tucker, the bioscanner in sickbay will have to be used. T'Pol suggests that the quarantined area is expanded in order to accommodate the infected crew members. Determined to help his crew, Archer replies that implementing Phlox and T'Pol's plan won't be a problem.
Go, Archer.
Go, Archer. Sometime later, Phlox notices Sato's bioreadings deteriorate. Dressed in environmental suits, he and Archer entered the quarantined area of the ship as Not Mayweather and Not Reed watch them on a monitor. When they arrive at the decon chamber, the doctor notes that Sato is entering oligemic shock and may soon be dead. Phlox and the captain carry her and Tucker into sick bay, where Archer calls out that Sato isn't breathing. Meanwhile, Reed repeats several words that he said earlier. Someone always dies. I do not like Not Reed.
No, I don't like
because he's not Reed.
Yeah. Duh.
This clinical detached Malcolm is he's not a nice person.
No, but it fits with the observer thing that is
Absolutely
here to observe. So
again, going back to the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in Act 4. Don't worry, we're almost done. In sickbay, Phlox and Archer attempt to revive Sato. Just before Phlox removes one of his EV gloves, the captain stops him and asks what he's doing. The doctor replies that he needs a better grip to operate the medical equipment, so Archer removes his own gloves, saying that a doctor is more urgently required on Enterprise than a captain is. The captain exposes himself to the virus, likely sacrificing his own life, in the hope that the doctor will find the antidote. They prepare the equipment for a cardiopulmonary resuscitation technique. Ooh, I said it.
Yeah, technobabble. Yeah, typical Archer. Is going to put himself in harm's way before his crew, or to save his crew.
Absolutely, and it's totally the right thing to do, both from an ethical, but also from a I presume a military perspective. He has to make the decisions of who's more important in the chain of command, and in this particular example, it ain't him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Not Reed comments that their behaviour is highly unusual. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 800 years, no one else that the aliens have observed have exposed themselves in an attempt to resuscitate their infected crew.
Yeah, in 800 years, you've never met Archer.
This is exactly it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just Archer. Have they observed humans before, or is this the first time they've encountered humans? I'm not sure whether we know this.
I would say it's the first.
Right. Okay. So this would explain why they're confused. Mm-hmm. In sickbay, Phlox instructs Archer to inject 40 units of trinephrine into Sato's heart. Phlox also tries to revive her using electrostimulus, but to no effect. Sato dies on the medical bed. Next, Archer and the Doctor try using the radiation treatment to save Tucker. The electrostimulus, nothing like I've ever seen before. Usually when they charge up the paddles and shout clear and press the button, you get like it happens once. Not, I think it was like three times the first time round, and then when they increased it was like 10 times, and then yeah, she did this kind of breakdance on the bed.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yeah, very unusual. Yeah, maybe in the 24th century or 22nd.
22nd century, yeah.
22nd, yeah. Things are different.
Yes.
Who knows?
I absolutely was not expecting Sato to die.
No. I was, I was expecting she would be in bad shape or things like something that, like, I don't know, maybe the treatment wouldn't have any effect, but not that she would die.
No, absolutely. Outside the quarantine area, Not Mayweather wonders why so many humans have to die before Not Reed will acknowledge that they are different. Not Reed answers that he will not ignore the aliens' protocol. He says that the incident which they've been directed to observe isn't over, and, now that the first death has occurred on the ship, there is a higher chance that the other crew members will also become infected. He reminds Not Mayweather that the aliens are not responsible for the virus, and that members of the crew would have become infected even if the aliens had not observed the situation. Not Mayweather asks what more can be learned from the humans, and suggests that the aliens should perhaps start to take responsibility for the effects of the virus.
Yeah, he's right in saying that whether or not they would have been there, Trip would have been infected. But then, as the Not Merweather says, they have the ability to change things, probably, and yeah, he's questioning as we said earlier, he's questioning the 800 years old tradition.
But I mean, there are two things that come out of this. I'm sure there have been scientific studies that proves that an object under observation can behave differently to one that is not.
The Schrödinger cat?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's
no,
not
it's not Schrödinger's cat because in this instance the cat is not being observed. So it's the lack of observation that doesn't allow us to draw any conclusions to whether the cat's alive or dead. But it's I don't know whether you have the saying in French, a washed pot never boils.
No.
So if you've got a pot of water on the stove and you're heating it up to boil, if you're looking at it, it won't boil. It's not true, but it's a way of saying that if you're going to stand there and wait for something to happen, then it's going to take longer than if you go and do something else and then come back to it. Again, it's not true. It's all about perception, but the idea is there. So I think their suggestion that the crew would have become infected even if the aliens had not observed the situation, I don't know. In the 22nd century, I don't necessarily believe that is that's true.
Okay.
But the other thing is they haven't been observing.
Yeah, they have been interacting.
It's not even that they've been interacting, they have been disrupting the process. Because whilst they are inhabiting human beings, those human beings are not doing their jobs.
That's true.
So whilst Phlox and T'Pol specifically were being inhabited by these aliens, they weren't looking for a cure to this virus.
That's true. Yeah.
That could have been for 10 minutes, it could have been for 2 hours, we don't know. But their presence there has had an impact. In sickbay, Archer completely covers Sato with a blanket, signifying her passing. He then helps Phlox move Tucker into sickbay's imaging chamber, where they irradiate his body. When they remove him from the chamber, Phlox murmurs that the procedure was ultimately unsuccessful. The doctor says that he did all he could have done for Tucker, but Archer could still be cured in the few hours that he has left to live. The captain orders Phlox to go to the bridge instead, saying that the doctor could be infected if he remains in sickbay. Once Phlox has left, Archer contacts the bridge, and he makes sure that T'Pol now knows that she is in command of Enterprise and tells her not to let Admiral Gardner place anyone else in command. He also says that if Tucker regains consciousness, he will immediately inform T'Pol and closes the communication channel to the bridge. Placing a hand on Tucker's chest, he watches a monitor as the engineer's low biosigns fall to zero. Like Sato, Tucker also dies of the alien virus.
Yes.
What? That's two principal characters have died.
Yeah, so at this moment you realize that something's going to happen because there's also 20 something episodes left, so we know that. But still, it was a surprise, and I didn't know what to expect right now. So two things.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go
on. Two things in this. It's not. It's when Archer tells T'Pol that he's going to tell her if Trip regains consciousness. That actually starts with her asking Archer to tell her if he regains consciousness. So it was not just Archer deciding on his own to keep her posted. And also, when he sends the Phlox to the bridge, he says, "Go to the bridge to to continue the researches. He's not just dismissing him to the bridge. He says that he had to continue his work on the bridge for that exact reason, that he would not be contaminated.
But how do we know he's not already contaminated?
We don't.
So Archer could have actually been sending Phlox into the bridge to contaminate the remainder of the crew.
Yeah. But as I said earlier, we don't know. Maybe they know, but we don't know if it's contagious or not.
Or even whether denobulans are affected by it.
Well, it probably is, because Archer gets contaminated. So it is contaminated. It is contagious. But yeah, as you said, maybe denobulans are not contaminated, which might be a reason why the observer...
It wasn't in the database.
Yeah. And a reason why the observer observes humans and not denobulans. After all, maybe everything is logical.
No.
Okay.
Archer is startled when the engineer's body is inhabited by one of the non-corporeal aliens, who tells the captain of the respect that he has for Archer. When the captain becomes confused at Tucker's regaining health, the alien tells Archer that the engineer has been inhabited by an Organian, a non-physical life form. The Organian explains why the aliens come here and repeats information regarding their non-interference protocol. He tells Archer that he wanted to warn the captain of the silicon-based virus, but that decision was not his to make. When Not Sato sits up and debates with Not Tucker on the subject of the Organians' directives, Archer interrupts that he doesn't care about their rules. When he questions them, Not Sato responds that the Organians are instructed to leave their hosts' bodies as they found them, so they will have to leave their current hosts dead. The captain agrees that the decision of whether to become involved with the species' natural development is a difficult choice, but suggests that the aliens could communicate verbally with their subjects in order to learn more about them. Not Sato argues that talking is a limited form of communication for the Organians, who are much more advanced than that. Archer disagrees, replying that the aliens don't seem more highly evolved than humans due to the fact that they have lost empathy and compassion, characteristics which give life meaning. When Not Sato tells the captain, who is beginning to exhibit the symptoms of the virus himself, that the Organians will soon leave, erasing his memory of their presence, she informs him that he himself will die in just 3 hours. However, Not Tucker refuses. When a stunned Not Sato accuses him of insubordination, Not Tucker responds that he's defying 10,000 years of protocol on alien interaction. He insists that they save the humans and gives Archer's compassion as a reason. When Not Sato promises that the aliens will eventually study other humans, Archer suggests to her that the Organians experience compassion for themselves in an effort to learn more about what it means to be human. And I've just realised they swapped. Not the hosts that they'd inhabited, but in this case, not Tucker being the senior officer, Not Tucker was the subordinate.
Yeah, that's true.
So my theory that the senior alien being inhabits the senior human is flawed, and I didn't spot that earlier on.
Yeah, and so because they were they swapped from when they were in the decon chamber.
Did they though? I didn't even notice which one had inhabited which at that point, because when we had the conversation about that earlier on, we were talking about Phlox and T'Pol and Reed and Travis.
That's true. Yeah.
So they're interesting. On the bridge, Phlox and T'Pol are contacted by Archer. Recalling his promise to let T'Pol know if Tucker ever came to, he tells her to come down to sickbay, where he's not only awake, but quite talkative, as well as Sato. When Phlox grimly interjects that she's dead, Archer insists that the doctor come as well, since he might have a better shot of figuring out what has just happened. Later, a baffled Phlox reports that he has detected no sign of the virus in Sato, Tucker or Archer, and he thinks that their rejuvenation may have been a delayed result of Tucker's radiation treatment, although that wouldn't explain why Archer and Sato are well again. T'Pol suggests that the pathogen's behaviour is more unpredictable than she and the Doctor had assumed, which could account for Sato and the captain's health. Smiling, Archer comments that the virus will later be studied by Starfleet Medical and notifies the crew that he plans to leave a warning beacon in orbit of the planet to warn visitors of the harmful effects of the virus. I don't know what the rest of that conversation was between Archer and the two aliens, but the smile that Archer gave, I thought that was really, really creepy.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not clear if he remembers. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does. There's no way to tell.
I
don't know. Maybe he's just smiling because he's happy that they're not dead anymore. Which, by the way, is something we were talking about, the aliens being able to inhabit the bodies of sick crewmen and act as like they were not sick at all. Well, they can inhabit dead bodies, so and even resurrect them. Yeah, so there's no way to tell what the alien did, and I think that brings a lot to this episode. Also, I mean, it was very well written until then, but the ending is just, I was like, wow,
yeah,
good job, very good job.
The only thing I can suggest here is that the aliens knew all along how to the antidote for the virus, how to recover from the virus. Mm-hmm. They knew the solution the entire time.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, I now have a better insight into how angry Archer was in the scene where Tucker and Sato came back to life. And he was saying about learning about compassion and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe they did. Well, actually, this next last scene will probably explain what I'm trying to say a bit better anyway. So the final scene, in a turbo lift, not Mayweather is pleased that the Organians will never be able to observe another species encounter the virus, and that, after 10,000 years, the aliens' rules will finally be changing. He informs Not Reed that he plans on advising the other Organians to begin preparations for first contact with the humans, which Not Reed suspects will occur in 5,000 years. Not Mayweather tells him that they better get started. Finally, Enterprise leaves the planet's orbit.
Yeah.
Fin.
La fin.
La fin.
So, yeah. Well, no, actually in French it's just fin. But
it's fin.
The end.
The end, yes. Yeah. La fin.
The fact that they are saying that they are going to make first contact in like 5,000 years, I believe Archer doesn't remember, but I don't know, because otherwise why wouldn't they make first contact with Archer?
That's a very good observation. No pun intended. I think if they're talking in terms of 5,000 years to initiate first contact with the humans, then that would suggest that despite the fact they've been observing different species for tens of thousands of years, in order to decide who to make first contact with, they're not in a position at this stage to do it. They're not ready for first contact.
Yeah. And also,
but
they say
5,000 years in their timeline is probably only a couple of weeks in ours.
Yeah,
we don't know that.
That's what I was gonna say, because they say it's gonna happen in 5,000 years, and the other one says, "Well, we better get ready," as in it's tomorrow. So also in 5,000 years, human would have evolved, I guess. So I don't know if
I've just done a search in Memory Alpha for the year 6154. In fact, it's not. It's 7154. I can't count. Yeah, there's nothing there.
There's nothing. Yeah, there's gonna be in an episode of Discovery.
Oh, hang on. Ooh. Yes, there is an article on Memory Alpha called Far Future, and it does reference the 72nd century, that around 7154, the Organians believed in 2154 they would re-encounter humans around this time. But that's all it says.
Yeah.
Yes, interesting. So, yeah, as an episode, I think we pretty much already said what I was going to say about it. Brilliant episode. Really enjoyed it. It shocked me in the places it should have shocked me, with the apparent deaths of Sato and Tucker. Overall, really pleased with it. It was a good episode to watch.
I think it's one of my, if not the best episode so far of season 4.
I'm not convinced it's the best one from me, but it's certainly one of the best. Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't mind saying this. I said to you late last week that when I was preparing for writing this review, rewriting it from pinching this review from Memory Alpha and then adding my own bits to it, I had actually spotted the various bits where Sato was dead and Tucker was dead, and I'm like, I haven't seen the episode yet. I can't believe this. These people can't die. You responded with, "You've read the review without seeing the episode?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I mustn't do that. Mustn't do that.
No, never. Yeah, great episode. Great work from the writing team, and well produced too. So one of as I said, one of my top.
Great stuff. So that ends our review of Season 4, Episode 11 of Star Trek Enterprise, Observer Effect.
So, after this review, we have 2 pieces of housekeeping to talk about. The first one we wanted to talk about in this episode is that we do have a Patreon page. So, if you enjoy the show as much as we like to do it, then maybe you would like to help us and maybe support us. So the only way right now to do that is through Patreon. Maybe we're going to look into other ways to support us. I know there are some other equivalents to Patreon that some people prefer, so we're going to look into that. We don't really like to charge for every episode because, not everybody is ready to spend $4 or $5 every month to support us. So we chose to charge per month. We have a few tiers available. So you can be an insane for $1 a month, a lieutenant for $2 a month, a lieutenant commander for $5 a month, or a commander for $10 a month. And the higher ranks are reserved for Dave and myself.
Yeah.
And our production
not for
crew.
Me. I did demote myself last week.
You demoted yourself, yes. That's
I demoted myself to captain. Why did I do it? I can't remember what I did it for now.
Yeah, don't know. You did something.
It was
for releasing the show on Sunday.
Oh yes, yeah. We normally release shows on Saturday, but for various reasons it was a day late, so I demoted myself temporarily. I'm now back as an admiral.
Admiral. Okay, that's great. At the moment, though, the only common perk we have is a thank you, a public thank you on the show. Though maybe we will have more stuff in the future. If you have any idea, let us know. Send us an email. We will give you the details, the contact information later on. So whether or not you choose to support us on Patreon, we are very grateful to have you as one of our listeners. Anyway, so just listening to this show is already a great support for us.
Yeah, and we cannot say how much we appreciate that you are actually downloading these episodes and listening to them.
And the Patreon page, you can find that at teargreyhut.org/Patreon. And
I say that you can download these episodes and listen to them, but you may not know that you can actually watch them as well. Not watching us physically, because we're not ready at that stage yet. Well, the people that are watching us in the live stream are, obviously. But
the people singular.
No, yeah, but the person, indeed. But no, we are uploading our shows also to YouTube. So if you want to go and if consuming content is through YouTube, is that the way you do things, then you can find us also on YouTube, and you can find our YouTube page over at tearlgreyhot.org/YouTube.
So I guess it's time to go over some news items. First, in the news review this week is Patrick Stewart teases Borg revelations in Picard premiere. In Star Trek Picard, resistance will be futile. Details about the new Star Trek series plot are scarce, but we know that the Borg play a role. The first trailer, revealed at San Diego Comic-Con, contained a shot of a Borg cube, either in construction or repair. There are also two key Borg characters, Seven of Nine and You, returning in the series. That's not to mention Picard's own storied history with the Borg Collective. At Destination Star Trek, Patrick Stewart suggested the show's premiere episode will offer fans a new information on the state of the Borg. After the 23rd, when our show airs, you'll know more about the Borg, Stewart teased. So, yay.
That's the 23rd in the US. It's the 24th everywhere else of January. Yeah.
Of 2020.
Oh, 2020, yes.
Yeah. just to make sure, in case in the 74th century someone finds this podcast.
Yes.
So the link
then they'll know who the Organians are.
Yeah. So the link to this complete news will be in the show notes. Next, still in Picard news, we have Patrick Stewart hints at more returning Next Generation cast in Picard series. Star Trek Picard on CBS All Access sees Patrick Stewart returning to the role of Jean-Luc Picard. The series reunites him with some of his old co-stars. Jonathan Frakes returns as Will Riker, along with Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troi. Brent Spinner returns as Data, although he may be a figment of Picard's mind. But Star Trek The Next Generation fans would love to find out how the rest of the Enterprise crew is doing these decades, since the event of Nemesis. During an appearance at the Destination Star Trek convention, Stewart gave fans hope they will see their wish come true. After praising his returning co-stars, Stewart posed a question. Stewart asked, "Will we meet the rest of the crew?" He then answered, "I think so." So
yeah,
I mean,
a little bit of a teaser there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if Jodie will be there, but that would be great. Maybe Beverly Picard will be there on the show, hopefully. Who else? Who is missing? Worf. Who else was on the Enterprise? Well, that's pretty much the bridge crew.
Did you mention Wesley?
No, I didn't. Yeah, maybe.
I know he wasn't a member of the crew per se, but
yeah, maybe. As the son of Beverly, if Beverly is now Miss Picard, maybe, well, we'll see.
Possibly.
So, yeah, a hint that more will return from the next gen. Next on the news tonight, Star Trek producer comments on possibility of a Discovery movie. Star Trek films and television will soon be back under the same roof for the first time in 15 years. Alex Kurtzman is the producer in charge of overseeing CBS's Star Trek television franchise. He spoke to TrekCore about whether the Viacom-CBS merger will affect any of his plans. No, it's a very business as usual for us, Kurtzman said. We have a slate of shows that's going to take us easily through the next 5 years, which in itself is already a great news. Another possibility opened up by the merger is that some of these new shows could turn into film series, as Star Trek the original series and Star Trek the Next Generation did. Kurtzman also spoke about that potential, commenting on the idea of a Star Trek Discovery movie by saying, "I wouldn't rule anything out, but I also feel like we have to keep forging new grounds. And Discovery is such a great place now that we would have to have a reason that inspires us to want to take it to the big screen." I think that's a very good observation. I mean, making a movie after just 2 seasons of Discovery wouldn't make sense. they are now in the future. They are writing canon, as we said earlier in previous episodes. So they have to lay some grounds, put some elements of stories in place before they can go to the big screen. As part of this article that I didn't write in there, he says that if they were to take it to the big screen, it would probably be a long story, like maybe 2-3 films. So it would take a lot of time to tell this story, and it can't be done while the series is on TV, because you can't stop the series for 6 years, time to make 3 movies and then pick that back up. So yeah,
no, I mean it's like with the original series films. The first original series film didn't come out until was it 15 years after the when was the motion picture was 1979, wasn't it? Off the top of my head,
something like that.
It was something like that. So 10 years after the original series was produced.
Yeah, 79. The movie.
Sorry, after it was finished, shall I say?
Mm-hmm.
But the first 4 films of the original Star Trek franchise were essentially the same storyline.
Yeah.
Because you were talking, it was about Genesis, and then it was about Khan and Spock dying, and then searching for Spock, and then going back home after they've picked up Spock and taken him back. So those first 4 films were just one huge, great storyline.
Yeah.
So there'd have to be either a storyline they wanted to cover, or an unanswered question that they needed to provide that level of detail for. So, for example, if you were looking at where Discovery Season 2 ended, where you've kind of got everything splitting off into 2 directions, you've got Discovery 900 and whatever it was years into the future, and Enterprise going off and doing what it does. We've still got a gap there between where the 2 ships parted and where the original series started. So you could theoretically make a movie that shows what happened to Pike's Enterprise before the timeline of the original series starting. You could make a couple of films out of that fairly easily, even if you weren't going to make a series out of it anyway.
Yeah, except you would have to fit those movies between the unaired pilot of Star Trek, the original series, and the series, because the pilot of the original series, The Cage, happened before.
Yes.
Because we see the...
What, before Discovery?
Before Discovery, yes.
Oh, okay. No,
so there's a little... Yeah. Well, that would work, but that would be a very short period of time.
But you'd also have to make sure that you don't affect the original series universe by things happening that you then can't explain later on. Mm-hmm. Like almost happened with Discovery, until they suddenly decided, okay, let's just everybody forget what they've just happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe a movie, a Discovery movie, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
No.
Now, a piece of news that's aimed to Michael, especially for Michael. I guess that anyway, I would buy that book and send it to Michael for Christmas, I guess. It's Titan Books announces Catherine Janeway's autobiography. So in the autobiography of Catherine Janeway, we get to hear the story of one of Starfleet's greatest captain in her own words. We'll hear her side of the story about how she and her crew traveled further than any human has ever before. They stranded decades from home while encountering new worlds and species. Explore how she brought together Starfleet and the Maquis as part of her crew, forged new alliances with species across the galaxy, and overcame one of Starfleet's greater threats, the Borg, and on their own remote and hostile territory. And we'll get Janeway's personal take on key characters such as Seven of Nine, her trusted friend Tuvok, new arrivals like Nilix and her second-in-command, Chakotay. Fans will be able to purchase the autobiography on July 14th, 2020. Damn, I can't have it for Christmas for Michael. So Michael, expect a present from me for Christmas 2020.
Christmas 2020. Excellent.
It should be interesting. I mean, it's obviously an how do they call that? In-universe story. So it's not the autobiography of a real person, but could be an interesting take on the Voyager timeline.
Yeah, I'll add that to my book list. Well, I will do when it comes out anyway.
Yeah. So links about all those news will be in our show notes, and that concludes our fortnightly news review for this episode.
So we're almost done. Thank you very much indeed to everybody for downloading the show. You can find our podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else that you can find good podcasts. If you are inclined, please do leave us a nice review in your podcast app. It doesn't help with our ranking at all, but it puts a smile on our face.
Yeah.
Also, please help us spread the word about our existence by, I don't know, we've done dogs, we've done projections on the side of the house. What can we do different? Hiring an aeroplane with a banner at the back of it saying subscribe to Tea Earl Grey Hot. That's a good one.
That's a good one, yes. Thank you
so
to do that.
Any kind of... we're not suggesting you do that, but any kind of a promotion like that on social media or anything like that it would help us. And if you do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, send us a photograph so that we can put it on the website.
If you go to any of the Star Trek conventions, you can talk about our show.
Yes, absolutely. And make sure you tell pretty much every one of the crew, the cast members that we want to interview them on this show as well.
Yes.
We'll have to get some business cards and such like made up so that people can take them with them.
Yes. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Gonna have to ask Vistaprint for a sponsorship. This review, the review of this episode uses material from the Observer Effect article on Memory Alpha, which is a wiki at Fandom, and is licensed under a Creative Commons by attribution non-commercial license, which means you can use it, but you can't make any business with it.
Absolutely. So you can find all information you would ever want to know about this podcast over at our official website, which is teaearlgreyhot.org.
Absolutely. And you can send us any kind of feedback at teaearlgreyhot.org, which is our email address. We read your comments and we may read it on the show unless you tell us not to do so.
You can find us on social media, some of them at least. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. You can find us, our username is TEGH Podcast. And we're also on Telegram. You can come and chat to us pretty much any time of the day that any one of us just happens to be awake. And you can find that at t.me/TEGH podcast. And if there are any social media thingies that you're on that we're not on, then please just let us know and then we'll just ignore you.
Yeah. We'd like to say hello to Bradley, who joined the group today. And I think who joined the group also earlier? Mauro. So hello guys, thanks for joining our Telegram group. We are also on Mastodon, on the mastodon.social instance, and our username there is TEGH Podcast.
Unless otherwise stated, this episode is released under a Creative Commons by attribution share-alike license, which means you can do pretty much whatever you want with it as long as you credit us as the original authors. And if you do publish something based on this episode, you must release it under the same license.
And of course, this podcast is part of the Other Side Podcast Network, and you can find more about our show at otherside.network.
The next episode will be a review of Enterprise Season 4, Episode 12, Babel 1, and we will be joined by another guest.
Yes, And we don't know who that guest is going to be, but
we don't.
We will find out. No, we don't. For real.
No, we don't. Honestly.
Honestly, we don't. So yeah, if we still don't when you hear this show, then we're in trouble. But if you want to join us on the show, send us an email at feedback@theardwarehut.org, and we will try to make that happen.
Absolutely. Whilst it would be fantastic to have another guest next week, if we don't, it's not going to be the end of the world. We'll still produce an episode, but we would it'd be really good if you wanted to come and join us on this show. So
we have
contact.
We had a guest every 2 episodes since the beginning of the show, but that's not a rule. It just happened to just be
it's just worked out
so,
that way.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Dave, for joining me once again tonight.
Pleasure as always.
We can't get rid of each other. Next episode will be next week. So we will see you then. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Ciao, ciao.
See ya.
You've been listening to a member of the Otherside Podcast Network. Find more about our shows at otherside.network.